Welcome, everybody. Today is the last session of our JavaScript trilogy. So today we're actually going to be building a mini web app. But before we do so, I'm going to show you through the homework of last week. Right. Here you can see my screen. And what we're going to be doing today is that we're going to be starting with briefly what did we do last time? And what are the solutions to the questions I asked you? Then we're going to have a quick look at the HTML and CSS, and we'll end with actually coding a mini web app. And again, I'll give you an exercise to do. So, first question was to create a program that logs the price of a ticket based on the age. So, my first line is maybe the most complex one in here because we did not really discuss this during class, though I did give you a hint. So I said if you're going to prompt for the age, it's going to be giving you a string back, and you probably want to change this to an integer. So that's exactly what we're doing there. So with a parse int, we're grabbing a string and changing it to an integer. And what do we insert in this parse int? Well, whatever the user inserts. So in this case, if it cannot be parsed, well, we'll have a problem. And then we simply have an if, else if, else if, else statement. So we'll start with checking for the age under 3. If that's the case, we'll log ticket is free. If that was not applicable, it's going to see whether the age is smaller than 12. And if that's the case, it's going to log ticket is $5. Then it's going to do something similar for 65. And finally, in all other cases, which is pretty much only possible, anything 65 or higher, ticket is going to be $7. So that was the first exercise. The second exercise was to create a while loop. And in this while loop, we would be asking the user for words. And the words would be added to an array. And well, I decided to do it slightly different, but we could lock the array in the loop. And when the user doesn't enter anything, the program will stop. So what did I do? I created two variables before I enter my loop. I create an array and I create sort of boolean. And this boolean I'm using to loop or to stop looping. So I say, while not done is true. Actually, there's a let missing there. But JavaScript is very forgiving. So while not done is true, and then it's going to ask for a word. If the word is not empty, it's going to be adding it to the array. If the word is empty, it's going to change not done to false. And then the loop will end because while false will end the loop, if you remember from last week. Alternatively, you could have also worked with while true and then use a break in the loop, but I don't like it that much. But I mean, it will work and it's a fine answer to this question. Then after the loop, I'm logging the array. And that's it. To guess the number game, you can find this on the GitHub repository. Alright, so that's it for last week. Let's go ahead and have a look at this week's content. And this week is actually quite a lot because we're going to be talking about HTML very briefly, CSS also very briefly, and then we're going to create a little to-do app. Let me quickly check the comment session here. Alright, it seems to be all going fine. So what's HTML? Well, HTML is actually hypertext markup language, and it's pretty much everything you can see on a web page. So elements of a web page, like a header, a paragraph, an image, is usually all HTML. And this HTML consists of a whole lot of elements. And you can see them on the slide actually. So for example, if we look at this element over here, it's a header. And this header has a certain attribute, a class. Well, it might look like a lot, but these elements, they just determine what's on the page. but it's not related at all to what it's looking like. So let's just go ahead, go to our browser, and see some HTML in action there. So I'm going to open. So last week we have been working with REPL, and this week I'm going to be working with gsfiddle.net. And I'm working with this one right now. There's a lots of others out there as well. You could use CodePen or whichever one you prefer. But I like this one because it's very easy to see what's going on the screen. So here we have a field in where we can enter HTML. So if I just say hi in here and I run it, you get the output there. This is the web page I've created now, so to say. Normally, when you're working on HTML locally on your computer, you need to specify the HTML tag, give it a head, give it a body. In here, we only need to specify the body tag. So if you want to do local development, there are some extra steps to take. But since it's very prone to errors, I don't want to do this in a short workshop because then usually I'm just busy debugging and explaining how to work with absolute and relative paths. So instead, we're going to be using this since this is going to combine our HTML, CSS, and JavaScript flawlessly. So this is what we're going to be doing for now. We're going to be working in here. In the book, it's actually also explaining how to set this up for your own computer. There's tons of resources out there that are explaining how to set this up for local development. But let's make our lives easy for now. So let's just go ahead and create our first HTML element in here. So what I will do, I'm going to be creating a element P. And P stands for paragraph. So if we look at this element, all of this is the elements. But this bit here, the P, that's the tag. And what I sometimes do when I'm talking, I confuse tag and element every now and then. But element really is this whole thing. And the tag is just the type of element, pretty much. In this case, a P, a paragraph element. So if I put something in there, I say, hi all, and I run this, you see that it lowered a little bit because it's in a paragraph right now. And if I'm typing HTML, it actually doesn't do line breaks. So for example, if I would not have this P here, so let me remove it again and say, hi all, how are you doing? Look what this is printing. It's just putting it on one line because HTML doesn't do line breaks by itself. If you want that, you can either put them both in their own paragraph or you could work with a break. There's tons of options. Clearly, I cannot teach you all of HTML in just 2 hours. So let's for now just work with paragraphs. You can see we have a paragraph for hi all, and we have a paragraph for how are you doing, and then it looks like this. This is already a bit nicer, right? So HTML is just what's on the website, and HTML without CSS, what we're having right here, is it's not very pretty, is it? But this is just the default way that my browser is displaying it. So for example, if I were to insert a link, for example, Google, do it like this, and I could say click here for more info or something like that. So I'm running this. And you may recognize this look and feel from broken web pages. They sometimes have this layout because there's no custom layout to it now. So this is actually a slightly more complex element. Look, it's the tag A, anchor link, I guess it stands for. And then it has an attribute here, a sort of key value pair that can be added after the tag name. And this key value pair is actually specifying where it's going to direct us to. So in this case, it's going to direct us to Google. If I change this link, it's going to send me somewhere else. If I click on this, it won't work because GSFiddle blocks external links, it seems. But at least this is how to create a link. So let me show you, well, one more for now. No, two more. So what I also want to show you is how to create an input for text, since we're going to need this in a bit. So how to create an input? Well, we use the input tag to create the input element. And I want to have it of type text. And as you can see, I need to close them here, right? I open it and I close it, open, close it. Well, you don't need to do this for the inputs. You could also do it on one line like this, but you could just leave it like this for an input. Then you can see I have an input box here now, so I can type in this. Well, let's do one bonus HTML element because this looks really ugly. Let's break here so it's on a new line. And the last one, let me show you how to create a button. Wait, let's do it in English. Click here. There we go. Now we have a button. So this is HTML. It's just showing whatever is on a website. They're just all the content of the website. But, well, arguably this is not very pretty, and I must warn you, even after I'm doing my CSS skills, it's still going to be ugly since I'm not a designer, but at least I can show you how to use CSS here. So let's just say that we want to have all our text of a different font. Then I have multiple options. So I could say I want to have the P's with a certain layout. What I do is in CSS, I use the P, and this P is referring to this one. And then in here, I can enter all sorts of, well, again, key value pairs to to give it a certain layout. So let me just go ahead and do the font family here, and I'll just do Arial. Again, I'm no designer, but as you can see, this one has changed, but this one has not. Why is that? Well, I did not target it. I only target the P ones. So if I want to target them all, I could also say body, and all of this is wrapped in a body element like this. Would make more sense to start top body. So this is all in a body element actually, but you can't see it really. Oh. But if I target body over here, then all the fonts will turn into Arial. Oh. Right. So that's how you can do some things with CSS. We could, for example, also give it a nice background color. We could make this, I don't know, yellow maybe. See, it now gets all very yellow. So familiarize yourself with CSS, know what options there are. If you really want to go ahead and make websites pretty, dive into Bootstrap. But for now, just know that you can target the elements by specifying their tag name. You can actually select elements with a few more details, for example, classes that they might get, as you saw on the slide. You can also target them by ID, but I'm not going to show you too much of a layout here. I really want to focus on how we can go ahead and create a little web app and combining our HTML and JavaScript, since it's mainly JavaScript course still. But just know you can also work with the CSS like this, and actually you can also change the CSS with JavaScript. But for now, let's just leave this. We may want to get this very bright color off the screen. Yeah, I like this better, or my eyes do at least. And well, there's plenty of resources out there. I'm sure you'll find a way to familiarize yourself with this. In the book, there's a crash course HTML and CSS in there in which I show a bit more details. And if you have specific questions at this point, please let me know. But I'm going to be removing all this, and I'm going to get us ready to have enough HTML knowledge for our tiny to-do list. So I'm going to get rid of all of this. I'll leave the font family in because I do like the font a tiny bit better. What do we need for a to-do list? Well, for the to-do list, we actually need, let's say, 3 things. We need an input box in which we can type the text. We need a button to say add to the list. And third, we need a list. So let's go ahead and write the HTML for that. So this is going to be very basic HTML. Just say input type is text. Then I'll create a button. And I'll give this a text add. And I'll be creating a unordered list. So this is done with the UL. And I'm just going to give this like one list item for now so you can see what this does. And if I run this, this is what our list looks like. And I want to be able to type something here, click this button, and then have it been appended to an unordered list. All right. So how to do that? Well, there are a few things that we need to do. First of all, we need to associate some sort of logic with our button up here. So since our button is very small, I'm just going to make this one line so I can make this one a bit bigger. And I'll remove the list item. We'll be just doing this dynamically. So in our JavaScript, I'm going to be writing a function add. And in this function, I'm going to do all the logic that I need to grab whatever is in here and paste it to our list items like this. But in order to do this, we actually need to know that there's a whole bunch of amazing built-in JavaScript functions that we need to interact with web pages. And they're actually hidden on a special document object, yet another built-in object. And with this document object, we can grab pieces of the document. So the document really is the HTML page in there, and it's built up with by all the tags. So for example, if I go ahead and grab the HTML document here, and I say look for all the input types, it's going to give me back a list with all the input types. In this case, only going to be containing one, since I only have one input element on my website. Let me quickly check StreamYard to see if this is landing. I do think so. All right. So before we start, I just want to show how to connect JavaScript to the button. So let's just do a alert here and say hi, like this. And then whenever we click the button, I want to trigger the function add, like this. So I'm going to be running this, and I'll click the button, and then it says hi. So I managed to connect my HTML to my JavaScript like this. So that's pretty nice. But what I also want to do now, I want to use this function here to actually select elements from our document. And there are special functions for that. So what I could do, for example, I could give our input. No, let's not. I could give our UL an ID. Let's start with this. So I say UL ID, and I'll just give the ID to do. Since this is our to-do list, all our to-dos will be on it. The ID is to do's. I just made up this name. I could have come up with anything. So ID is to do's, and I can go ahead and from our documents, I can say get elements by ID. And then I have to specify the ID, which is to do's. This is going to be returning whatever element on here has the ID to do's. And you cannot see your unordered list because it's empty, but it is there. So let's just store this in a variable to do list like this. And maybe alert the to-do. Oh, let's just log the to-do list. So you can actually see what kind of object this is. To-do list. Oh, I'm going to be running this again. It's an important step, else your changes won't have come true. So here's our console. And I'll click add. And you see, oh, this is the results. Can I make this bigger? Appears not. So, well, my main point here is actually this is a really big element. So the elements that we are getting back. Oh, yes, here you can see it. It's an HTML UL list element, and it has all these things in there. And one of these is append child, and this is what we're going to be using. So we're going to give it a child, meaning we're going to be adding HTML in here. So that's a function we're going to be using, and it actually also has a property child child nodes over here, and we're going to be adding a child to this child nodes. So it's pretty much a tree, right? So if our to-do list had another to-do list, we could click through this all the way through it. But for now, we'll be just adding a child node. How to do that? Well, that's probably the most complicated bit here. Can I make this smaller? Oh, minimize. There we go. So we are able to select our to-do list. We could log it, but we don't want to log it. We actually want to go ahead and add an element to it. So let's just for now do static elements. Let's go ahead and say do list, and we'll say append child. And in here, I'm just going to say create, and I'm going to be creating a text node now because, well, this is an easy way to start. So I'll just add a task to it. There we go. Let's see if this is working. If I click add right now, oh, I get some problems. Let's see what I did wrong. So whenever you screw up, which I did now, you can go ahead and check your console to see the error. So it says create text node is not defined. And that's because actually I have to call this on document again. So let's try it again. Oh, let's run it and then try it again. And you can see that now task is being added every time I hit add. Clearly, this is cool. This is interaction, but this is not what we meant to do just yet. So what are we going to do? Well, we are going to read the value that's in here. And that's actually quite another step. So again, we will be using something like this. So I could go ahead and give this an ID for now. I'll just say new to do like this. And then I'm going to do something similar. So I'll say let to do equals documents.get element by ID. And then the new to do is the ID that I'll be entering. Like this. And this is giving us back our input box. But actually, we don't want all of the input box. We just need its value. And we can do so by adding dot value to it. Like this. So instead of this task here, I'm going to be inserting to do. And I'm going to be running it again. And I'll just say something here like hi, edit, by, and edit as well. So as you can see, right now it's doing this dynamically already. So again, we say from the document, get element by ID new to do, which is this one. And then we say grab its value. And that's what we're doing. What would be even nicer if the value was set to 0 again, or to 0 to empty again. So what we're going to be doing here, I'm not going to be doing it like this. I'm going to say to do dot value in here for now. Then after that, I'll say to do dot value is empty. This. Then if I now add something, you can see it's gone. Still, I mean, this is a messy to-do list, right? It would be way nice if we had separate bullets. Well, in that case, we cannot just use create text node, but we have to be appending a new item. So our add method is getting a bit messy, so I'm going to be using a new method for this. So let's just go ahead and say function creates to do item. This. And what we're going to do, we're going to be calling this create to do item in here. So I'm going to remove this and I'll just say create to do item and I'll just send in the text that I need. So in here, I'll just send in the text. If there are any questions at this point. There don't seem to be any questions at this point. So I have this create to do item text, and this should return whatever we want to go ahead and append to our child, the unordered, and append to the children of our unordered list. So this needs to be a list item. Let me show you how to do that. So let's just say list item, and then we use the document again, and we say create elements, an HTML element, and we want to create an LI one. And then I'm going to set the contents of my LI of my list item here. So say list item append child, and then in here I'm going to say documents create text node, and there we're going to be inserting the text, the input of this function, and then we're going to be returning our list item. And this returned list item is going to be appended to the child here. So let's see what happens. So I'll say task 1, I'll edit, and I'll say task 2, add, 3, add, etc. But some things are not going too well just yet, because if I just hit add, it's just adding bullets, and ugh, that's ugly. I don't want that. I don't like it. So I need to go ahead and change something. Well, where? Well, I want to only add to my to-do list if the value is not empty. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say in here, if to-do.value doesn't equal empty, then go ahead and the child, and afterwards set the value to 0. And there's no else. I mean, it just doesn't need to do anything if it's empty. So if I run this again, task 1, I'll hit add 2. If I just hit add, nothing happens. So let's see. So this is how to create a very, very simple to-do list with items. Are there any questions about this? Because this is really how easy it is to go ahead and modify the to-do list. I don't think so. I don't see any questions in here at this point. So there's actually some fun extra task that I would like you to do. I want you to go ahead and modify this yourself. There are, well, pretty much two things that I'd like to see. Well, first of all, you'd have to go ahead and recreate this yourself. But second, and this is more fun, let me grab my slides real quick. I want you to go ahead, do what we just did, write a mini to-do list. So just start with what we did. But then there are going to be two things that you can add to this. I want to be able to delete the items, and I want to be able to edit items after I'm done. And since it is the last session, I'm going to send you the solutions afterwards in the resources document. But this is really quite some advanced JavaScript already. And if you have the book, it will help to work your way through chapter 9 first. But if you don't have it, I'm sure that you should have the Google skills by now to figure out how to make items disappear using the JavaScript. And after this, I would really encourage you to go ahead and continue your JavaScript journey. And there's so many ways to do this right now. So nowadays, you really have the luxury of doing it any way you'd want. So if you have the book, just continue working your way through the book, and this will really give you a solid basic knowledge level of JavaScript. But you could also take an online course or read resources online. And most importantly, try to build a website and learn as you go, because learning JavaScript is really doing JavaScript. If you have questions at this point, you can either ask them now or ask them later via the Discord channel. So let me see if I can get to StreamYard again. Are there any questions at this point? All right, so I'm going to be sending this over, including the code samples, to our Discord channel. So you can go ahead and in there, you can grab the sample we had, or have a tiny peek and look at it every time you need it. If you don't need it, just go ahead, and it's going to be so nice to see the things you've made. So I really like to see your solutions as well. Let me quickly show you how you can share if you're doing this in JS Fiddle. Go. So if you click save, I'm going to save this. You get this link, and this link I'm going to share with you in a bit, so you can easily go ahead and get this example. Well, don't be afraid to ruin it, because if you save it again, it's just going to have an addition to it, so you cannot ruin it for everybody else. Oh, and I see a question, is JavaScript used in ethical hacking? Well, I'm no ethical hacker, um, and I'm sure it's being used, well, I actually know it's being used for some specific purposes. It's probably not the main thing you use in ethical hacking, but definitely if you want to work your way through websites as an ethical hacker, you will have to know JavaScript. Yes, definitely. Any other questions? Right. I'm gonna move over to Discord. I'll end the live stream, and if you have any questions, please reach out via the Discord channel.